The great Mark Latham joins me. Mark, what on earth do you make of all of this? Lovely to have you on board again. We won't talk cooking. Have you fed yourself?
Yeah. Had a lovely Vietnamese chicken rice noodle dish. And the key, Alan, is the sauce. I mean, this sauce, for the fresh Vietnamese taste, you put in the rice wine vinegar, the sesame oil, a bit of brown sugar, and fish sauce. And it's a winner, 100% winner. You got to get the sauce
You're
right.
amazing. Before we get on to this, what is all this nonsense about Scott Morrison going to the football? Seriously.
Well, you know, down there representing state seats of Cronulla and Miranda and the federal seat of Cook, it's compulsory to support the Sharks.
Yeah.
You get kicked out of the Shire
Absolutely.
if you're not a Sharkie. And I think people should be happy that the Prime Minister does something to do with his electorate.
Correct.
In his spare time. And if it's a sin to go to the footy, we'll all be out of public office. I love the footy, and I hope Anthony Albanese's there supporting his Rabbits against the Knights in the coming round. I mean, people would whinge about anything.
Absolutely.
And you've got lefties out there thinking, oh, if we go on about the footy, we'll get into Morrison just like they did in the bushfires. Well, it's nothing like that at all, and it's just a sign of their derangement syndrome they've got about it.
Good on you. But just come back to this pandemic. 50 people in hospital, 17 in intensive care. Is that a pandemic?
Well, no, we haven't had a pandemic in Australia, Alan, and the virus has been in our country for 6 months, and 3 people under the age of 60 has passed away. Correct. It's the only time in Australian history that someone passing away at age 95 will get in the headlines. Yeah. We had 3 people under the age of 60 who passed away out of 108 deaths. As you say, we've got 17 in intensive care, 7,000 intensive care beds. Driving in here tonight, was listening to the ABC where you had a host and a so-called public health expert.
About the derangement syndrome.
Well, they're trying to convince each other that the hospital system is about to be overrun.
Yes.
17 in intensive care, 7,000 beds. It's 0.2% of the total. Right. Yet what Paul Murray has so aptly described as panic porn in the media, they're trying to build up the hysteria way out of proportion. We haven't had a pandemic here. No. And politicians
in America,
react to this stuff.
In America, 0.004% of the population have died. Just to ask you a question here about Kevin Rudd. You know Kevin Rudd?
Yeah, I remember him. Yeah.
He's bought this great big mansion at the Sunshine Beach right on the coast. Now, I thought
on the water.
On the water. I thought that
had 20 metres from the water.
Yeah, these advocates of climate change told us that the beaches were going to finish up in Bathurst or, you know, somewhere at Longreach. What's going on here?
Well, they're all living on the water. Obama, Rudd, Turnbull, Tim Flannery. I'm the only idiot who bought inland. At Mount Hunter, I thought by now I'd have a nice ocean view, about 40 kilometres inland.
That's right.
in Western Sydney. So more fool me for listening to their advice. They're all on the water, and it just shows that they were running a fraud on the people, and they put their money where their real convictions are, and that's, paddling in the morning.
He also said you shouldn't listen to Michael Schellenberg, the environmentalist who apologised for the climate change alarmism. And he said the reason you shouldn't listen to him, he's not qualified. Now, nors Kevin, and nors Greta Thunberg, I would have thought.
Well, Schellenberger was an advisor to Obama.
That's it, so not qualified.
And he's made the very valid point that if you're interested in energy efficiency, you wouldn't go down the path of renewables because they're big users of raw materials and, most importantly, big users of land.
Correct.
You know, they're very land extensive. And you've only got to look at a solar farm or a wind farm to see how much land they actually take up. So I thought Schellenberger, his critique was devastating.
But he's not qualified, according to Kevin, but Greta Thunberg is. Just jumping around a bit here, I just wanted to ask you before we get on to this Ruby Princess and the problems in New South Wales, but childcare, the free childcare ends on Monday. Are parents going to struggle to afford childcare once the free childcare goes? And, of course, the subsidies to childcare workers are phased out.
Well, they'll still get the normal support that they would have been eligible for. And the reality is on the federal budget, you can't fund the nationalisation of the payroll through JobKeeper forever. You can't fund another cash splash, another $4 billion. Like, we've got to the point now where billions of dollars thrown around in the federal budget are sort of like thousands of dollars in the old days. I mean, it's just out of proportion. And, you know, it's probably my grandchildren who'll be struggling to pay off the debt. So the numbers are astronomical, and you can't afford a free society forever. So at some point, all these things have got to end. And the childcare arrangements to me seem reasonable. Some people are doing it tough, but we're going to do it tougher for our grandchildren with the debt and deficit, the intergenerational inequity with which they're lumbered.
I have no idea this statement's going to be made on the 23rd of July. I've no idea what they're going to say as how they explain away the funding of the debt, but that's for another day.
Well, they need an economic recovery strategy, which is about our competitive advantage. It's the only way you can bring down the twin deficits. We've got a deficit of jobs and a federal budget deficit. The only answer to that is growth. Take off all the restrictions off growth. Take them all off. Energy policy, development approved, take them all off. And that's the only way you can proceed.
You've got to grow the cake. The Ruby Princess, the greatest source of infection in Australia.
Well, you know, I heard Gladys the other day saying mistakes will happen. Well, people have got to do their job.
And she won't answer questions.
And obviously the health officials there didn't. And then it was so alarming last week that we had the passengers off the Jetstar
plane. Now, the airport.
New South Wales have got 650 police officers down guarding the riverbanks of the Murray.
Why are we paying for Victoria's mistakes?
Exactly. They're yet to issue a health order fine. But we didn't have a single official in the air bridge as the passengers get off the Jetstar, only one way out of that terminal at Sydney Airport, and they all walk off into the night. It could have been another Ruby Princess disaster. Thankfully, it's not shaping up that way, but, you know, it's not sufficient to say mistakes will happen. The real message is people must do their job.
Yes, I just wanted to... I said last week I'd touch with you on this whole issue of what's happening in our schools. We talked about the Cultural Revolution not in our favour, Western civilisation being attacked, the age of the Enlightenment being discredited, kids being propagandised and indoctrinated in schools. You just explain this piece of legislation that you intend to introduce.
Well, we've got to reassert the rights of parents in the education system. They've just brought down the Masters Curriculum Review in New South Wales, and on page 4 of that document, there's a stunning statement. It's at that point the review should have been thrown in the bin by a coalition government, but the statement is that essentially the nuclear family is not what it used to be. It's done for in terms of...
Sorry to interrupt you. Let me just read what you've just said on page 4. This is of the Curriculum Review. And this fellow Masters writes, with the decline of other institutions, sometimes including families that once played a lead role in inculcating values and developing character, schools have found it increasingly necessary to give priority to students' social and emotional development and often to their physical and mental safety, health and wellbeing. That's not the role of schools.
What a massive insult to the millions of parents in New South Wales loving their children, caring for their children, passing on the social and emotional development, passing on morality, ethical beliefs, values, social values. What a massive insult to all those parents to say, basically, you're off the scene now. Schools have got to do this job. The truth is, there's some good teachers out there, but essentially in our lives, they are strangers. They come and they go, but we're the ones, parents, always there at night with the kids, in the morning, in the troubled times, in the good times. The teachers come and go, ending up strangers in our life, and for someone to say that schools should be the main unit of passing on social values and morality in our society is what my bill wants to address. Yes. Parents must have that role, and it should be in law.
Let me tell our viewers exactly what you do want incorporated into the Education Act. I'll read from what Mark Latham wants incorporated. Parents are primarily responsible, he wants this in the Education Act, for the well-being of their children, especially in the development of values, morality, ethics, resilience and character, including an understanding of personal identity, questions of race, gender and sexuality. No school, government or non-government, shall infringe on these parental rights by conducting lessons and activities contrary to the wishes of parents in the areas of parental responsibilities listed above. You're looking for public debate on that, aren't you?
Well, and support in the Parliament, because it's time, you know, it's Waterloo on these issues.
Waterloo.
Because if we allow the Masters attitude to take hold, and it's already evident in the education system, we saw Safe Schools, for example, then it's too late. Parents will be written out of the education system. The role of the school is to serve the families, not the other way around.
Good on you.
And the school is there to be teaching consistent with the values of the parents. And if we don't legislate that now, we'll have more safe schools. There's a group called Multiverse. We found them in the professional development accreditation, who for them 4-year-old kids are part of a political indoctrination camp where all parts of the preschool classroom...
Boys can be girls, girls can be boys.
...have got to be set up. Even the dollhouse has got to have transgender characters to get these kids used to gender fluidity.
Good on you.
Now, this is not education, it's indoctrination, and it's got to end.
Keep at it. Great to talk to you. We'll take it up again next week. How good's this bloke? How good's this bloke? The leading thinker in Australian politics, Mark Latham.